Towards the end of our stay in Kaikoura, we stayed in our boss's hut up on Mount Lyford. During the winter, they have a small ski resort up here. It's kind of hard to imagine this place that's so dry and arid with so much snow. Miles spent about 3 hours heating this hot tub up by wood stove, and it was kind of the perfect job for him because he loves tending to fires. I had been wanting to stop in the museum in Kaikoura for the whole time that we were there, and I'm so glad that I did. I learned more about the history of Kaikōura and the earthquake that happened that changed kind of the whole landscape of the area, and I just came out of it seeing the town differently, and it was very cool. We ate at a restaurant we'd been wanting to eat at. We went out to the local pub with some of our roommates, and I also got to ride a bike trail that I'd been wanting to ride for a while. The day after our last day of work in Kaikoura, Miles's parents came. Yay! So Chris and Laura joined us, and we decided to start with a bang by going swimming with dolphins. We snorkeled with the dolphins and had really thick wetsuits on so we didn't get cold. It was honestly one of the coolest experiences ever.
Oh, so freaking cool!
These dolphins are dusky dolphins. They're extremely social. We were encouraged to swim around in circles and dive down deeper, and they would follow us. If we sang underwater or made specific noises, they'd be curious and kind of check out what was happening. We were in a pod of hundreds of dolphins, and they got so close to us we could have touched them, but we were encouraged not to because it would have made them anxious. After our final goodbye to the restaurant, we headed out and we're on the road again. While Laura, Joe, and Chris were unfortunately dealing with lost luggage, Miles and I ran into a family here that took us into this cave. We were wading through water in the cave, and it was about an hour until we reached the other side. This was another stop we made on the road. We saw some people bouldering on these rocks, which was really cool, but not gonna lie, I was a little bit jealous. I would have loved to participate, but alas, I don't have any climbing gear in New Zealand. We finally connected again with Chris and Laura Joe and found our campsite for the night. After the lost baggage, we had another obstacle, a flat tire.
That's good you know how to do it.
But after a quick tire change, we continued to drive through Arthur's Pass to the west coast. We stopped in Arthur's Pass to do a little hike at the Devil's Punch Bowl waterfall. Chris and Laura Joe's car is in front of us here. It was really fun to caravan with them, see their car around, and just camp with people, especially people as fun as Chris and Laura Joe. When we got to the west coast, we arrived in Hokitika. We stayed at an old mental hospital converted into a hostel. Here we're cooking outside because the kitchen was so full. This place was so bizarre. It had a lot of the original decor from the mental hospital, and then they had this room with a mannequin posed next to a shock machine. Definitely some funky vibes.
People died here.
Everyone's coming, guys.
It's crazy. Say hi.
Hello. Echo.
On the beach of Hokitika, people had made sculptures out of the driftwood.
Put your phone down. There you go. Good.
Awesome.
I'm just gonna go to bed. Probably like, do you want to go on a glowworm tour? And I was like, oh no, I already ran. He's like, no, this one's way better. Walk up the street.
We stopped at Host at a freedom camping place for the night, and we got to witness a beautiful sunset.
We were at that part of the Washington coast.
Yeah, yeah.
We stopped in Wanaka for a bit and rode around part of the lake on some bikes. I love riding a bike, so this was one of my favorite parts. We drove right past the Queenstown area without stopping because Chris and Laura Jo were on a tight schedule, and we had to go to the Milford Sound because it was kind of the highlight of the trip.
Then I went and got myself a ball.
For the night, we camped outside of Te Anau. Shout out to Chris's fire making skills because we even had a little fire.
So where the stop is, though, is that key divide. It's called the divide.
How far is that?
I don't think it's that much far. I don't know.
The Milford Sound area was so amazingly beautiful. Definitely the prettiest place I've ever been to. A fun fact is that before there was an accessible road to the Milford Sound, mail people had to climb a rope over the mountains to deliver mail to the sparse residents of Milford Sound.
I was like, my thighs were feeling weary.
Yeah.
We went on a cruise to explore more of the sound and also to visit New Zealand's only floating underwater observatory. A lot of deep-sea creatures are attracted to the Milford Sound because the heavy rains makes for silty and dark water, which mimics deep-sea water, and it's also relatively calm. This is black coral, which is poorly named because it's white when it's alive. Its skeleton is black, so before the invention of scuba diving, the only reference people got for this coral was when it'd wash up on shore and it would be black. The average rainfall in the Milford Sound annually is 681.3 centimeters. It also averages to rain about 182 days a year, and that makes for some really beautiful waterfalls off the sides of the cliffs, We were there on a really nice and sunny day, so we didn't get to quite see that.
No.
Hello.
One of my old co-workers in the States works in the Milford Sound on a boat, and he was kind enough to show us a little secret swimming spot and introduce us to his co-workers. Traveling with Chris and Laura Jo was such a hoot, and I was so happy we could do it. Sadly, though, they needed to go to the East Coast, and Miles and I wanted to keep going south, so we had to part ways. I snagged an interview from them before they left, though.
How is New Zealand? What do you think of it?
New Zealand is amazing. The natural scenery is just beautiful, and all the people are so nice and friendly. And just from the coast to the fjordlands to the mountains, it's like even the places that aren't beautiful are beautiful. So I love it here. I'm sad to leave. 2 weeks is not enough time. That would be my biggest takeaway, I think.
Okay, so what do you think of New Zealand? How was your time?
I think New Zealand is an amazing place, and I feel so fortunate to have come here with Laura and got to see Miles and Sydney, and the country is so beautiful and so diverse, and I really appreciate how people here seem to cherish it. Feels so different than back home, and it's just been an amazing first international trip for Laura and I hope we can come back sometime.